What happens when your business, everything you've poured into your heart and soul suddenly comes crashing down? How do you stay faithful when the world tells you to follow your heart, but your heart's been broken? How do you continue to build a brand, a family, and a future while keeping God, not your successes, as your compass? In this episode, I get into it with Matt Chenard. He's a family man. He's a businessman. He's a cold plunger. We're going to get into all of the things that he struggled through and came out of. A lot of it through cold plunging, which brought him a massive following on Instagram. All that and more with Matt Chenard here on this episode of Be Your Brand to Glorify God. So we start out this episode with Matt talking about his early days on the ice, which transitioned into getting into the spirit and the sports industry. He opened up his own gym, and he faced a lot of adversity in 2020 when everything was locked down with all these financial setbacks, including a $1.2 million of unrealized revenue that truly tested his faith and his resilience and how he lost complete control. But faith, family, and guided by purpose brought him to the light. And we get into that and all of the approaches and all of the things that he built in terms of other businesses and helping other businessmen, especially Christian business owners, to realize that dopamine is something that we've been chasing and that he has figured out ways to help us get through dark times, through prayer, through meditation, through health. And this episode, we unpack all of those things. I hope you'll enjoy this episode of Be Your Brand to Glorify God with Matt Chenard. Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Be Your Brand to Glorify God. This is a new and exciting endeavor for me because this show is all about building businesses, building personal brands to glorify God, and not necessarily you, not necessarily me, and patting ourselves on the back. What I want to do is begin those conversations centered in Christ. And how do we build personal brands? How do we build brands that serve people, that reflects your faith and points to the kingdom? So that being said, I am so blessed and honored to have a guest today who is a Christ-centered man who is building for the kingdom. Welcome to the show, Matt Chenard.
Thank you, Erik. I'm really excited to be here. Pumped for this.
Yeah, me too, man. I look at these things less as like a podcast and more like, on this channel, on this YouTube channel, I do want to start having these Christ-centered conversations. And I know when you and I spoke a few weeks ago, I was like, man, you have to be on the show. Like, you're one of my early episodes. So thank you, man. I really appreciate you and your time here on Good Friday.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm honored.
Have to point that out. Yeah. We're taking time out as the Lord has suffered on this day. But yeah, we're looking forward to his resurrection on Sunday, which is Easter coming up. So yeah, we're excited. So I wanted to, this is the first question that I love, and it's teeing up basically your testimony. What brought the Lord into your life? And we're going to get into all the reasons and how you incorporate it and thread it through your business too. But yeah, I just want to hear how you came to the light, brother.
I grew up in a Christian family. I'm from a small town in Alberta, Canada. And yeah, quote unquote, accepted the Lord into my heart when I was 5. And that we can get to the longer part of that. But basically, it wasn't until I'd say my 20s that it became real for me. Like, my faith was something that I started to develop and I started to understand at a deeper level. And I'm incredibly grateful for growing up in an amazing household. I know a lot of people don't have that opportunity or that blessing, but that's where it would have started at 5 years old. And then throughout the years, I played competitive hockey, and then navigating that whole, let's call it culture, and really starting to dive deeper into, hey, what does this relationship with Jesus actually look like? What does this mean to have a faith? How does that impact how I show up into the world? And then I would say it got even deeper and more real to me when the first, I guess not the first, but the lockdown started to happen on our gym business. And hey, I actually can't control everything in my life. And I've been really grateful up to this point. I mean, I've had hiccups, I've had struggles, my fair share of them. But at that point, it was okay. I am understanding that I can't control everything. And I need to develop this relationship that isn't tied to my circumstances in terms of the world, but is putting my hope into something that is beyond this world.
Yeah, you're giving me, I'm sort of projecting here, and you can correct or corroborate what happened during that time for me. You know, faith, politics, I wasn't interested. And then that was like a red pill moment. Like I woke up and I was like, there's something going on. And if evil is clearly present and there are agendas being pushed, then there has to be the opposite. There's something good here. And what is that? So I started personally exploring, but then what I want to get to in your business, for us, it took a couple of years where we started to feel the ramifications of what happened in 2020. And at some point I thought I was going to fold the business. And I was like, my whole identity is wrapped around this thing. Like, and I went into dark times and dark places. Did something like that happen for you as well? Was your company and Jim threatened to be like, how am I going to bring this back? Like, people, this is me, that's part of me. Like, how did you navigate through that? And did that bring you closer to the Lord, and prayer was being had more often?
Yes. Yes, to all the above.
So I wasn't just projecting, yeah.
No, so we had our best month ever at the gym in March. In March. And then we just went for a staff retreat in the mountains by Banff, Alberta. I know some people would be familiar with that. Beautiful place, big team, record month in the gym business. I had spent a couple $1,000s on a blueprint of a building I was going to build, like a $2 million, $3 million building that was going to house our gym, was going to house a coffee shop, was going to house all these, like a sauna and cold plunge mix. And I was excited. And then March 17th hit, first closure. And 2 weeks to flatten the curve turned into, I don't know how long that took.
2 years?
Yeah. So in the total span of 2 to 3 years, and we had it pretty bad here in Alberta. We got closed. We had to open and close. We had the opportunity to open and close 5 times, and we couldn't use our gym for 7 months while we're still paying rent. While we've built up this business, and for entrepreneurs listening, I know your audience is mostly entrepreneurs, but you have to build up your expenses to a certain, like your overhead to a certain amount to be able to make enough that money, right? You have staff, you have operating costs, you have a lease. So it's not that once we made it to this revenue and everything gets shut down, that all those expenses go down. Everything went with it. So throughout that whole period, I did the math, and with lost revenue, my wife lost her job based on some decisions we made around everything happening at the time. She was a nurse, so she lost her job without pay.
Yep.
And no maternity leave. So she lost all maternity leave for our first kiddo, and we're expecting another one here in June. So we had no maternity leave for a job she had for 10 years. And all in all, I did the math. It was like $1.2 million in unrealized revenue, savings, everything.
Wow.
So to answer your question in a more succinct manner, yes, my identity was wrapped up in being able to build this thing, this vision that, I mean, even if there were good things, like these things were good, but the danger is not in usually the things that are bad in our lives. It's that the good things become the ultimate thing, right? They start becoming our definition of our identity and our character and our value as a person. So my relationship with God got much deeper, and I realized that, hey, I can still pursue things with excellence and build things and enjoy that, but I'm going to offer it up with open hands and say, hey, this is what I think I should be doing. Help me know if this is the right way to walk, and I offer this up to you and whatever you want to do with it.
I love that. So was that relatively easy for you to do, to offer it up? Or was there any period of time where you're like, I am fighting tooth and nail, I'm going down with the ship? Was there any period of time, or is that in your personality to fight, or offer it up?
Yeah, there would be almost a dichotomy there a little bit. I think when we're doing these this isn't a short interview, but in terms of how it all happened, it wasn't like, hey, day one hit. I'm like, hey, here it is. I give this to you. It's this continuing process of reminding myself of God's character, reminding the truths of the Bible. I just listened to, my wife sent me a good podcast by the late Tim Keller on Abraham, right? Offering up his son, and how there is all these tests leading up to that. And when he was doing this, he actually went through the analysis in his mind saying, basically, I know God can bring him back, but that's not why he did it. He did it because he's offering up this good thing, this ultimate thing, and saying that, hey, God is God and I'm not. And this process, and he went through all these tests, and I would say these past 4 or 5 years have really refined me in that, and going through these continual tests, right? Like, okay, here it is. Okay, now it's coming back, so I'm going to hold on to it and really try to make it happen. And that's not to say we didn't try hard and fight tooth and nail. Like, we adapted. I'm real super proud and grateful for our team that was through it all. But yeah, I think I would say it wasn't like this one moment where like, here it is. It's been this continual process and continual reminding of myself as we continue to, because you can't lose that much money and not have it ripple effect for 7-10 years down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't imagine going through something like that and not having faith in something. Hopefully it's God, hopefully it's Jesus. But yeah, I mean, having the faith to know, like you were saying earlier, it's out of our control. And people who, I forget the quote, but it's something along the lines of anxiety is really just lack of faith. Like worrying is just, you don't have it, right? So your faith got stronger during that time, or you came back to it. Were you incorporating your faith into your business previous to that, or is it relatively new? And how do you incorporate it currently?
Yeah, so I would have a few businesses. The gym business, we always would incorporate it. It's not like we're going up before. So the gym business, it's a group training facility, and it has nutrition coaching and personal training and semi-private training. It's not like we'd stand up in front of the class and preach a sermon or pray. But we have a prayer board. We're openly acknowledge our beliefs, and if people want to talk about us with us, we're not holding back. So I would say in the gym business, I wouldn't have ever suppressed that, but it's not like we're using it to preach explicitly, because people are coming there to get fit and healthy, right? And we can showcase the gospel with who we are and create curiosity and create deeper relationships. And there's been a lot of cool things around that. I would say mostly around my personal brand. My personal brand is tied to my coaching. So I've grown a fairly big personal brand and on Instagram, and I'm a Christ follower on there. And I've let's say teased some of my posts like, hey, Jesus is the way and things like that. And not as explicit as that, but I haven't shied away from that. And I think it was a couple months ago, I've started sharing more posts, and I think I lost 15,000 followers, right? So I went from 55,000 to 40,000. I was like, you know what? He's given me this platform. I'm still going to push this. I'm going to pursue that. And I shared that journey. And the ironic thing is, like, I shared a reel about how I lost this many people. And I think I gained 50,000 people from that reel, sharing more about my faith.
Praise God.
Now I've been leaning into that, not just because it gains followers, like because I know that I've been, again, open hands. Like, I've been entrusted this bigger platform, and if not 100% of the time, like, if not 95% of the time, if not 100% of the time, I'm sharing some aspect of the truth, the gospel in my posts. And it's been really cool to see where that's leading.
Yeah. From day one, were you sharing your love for Christ, or was it a gradual thing? Like, when you were from 0 to 5,000 followers, 10,000 followers?
So I would say I had in my profile, like, I've always had disciple or apprentice of Jesus, follower of Jesus. I haven't changed that. But no, I would not say in all my posts, I like talking philosophy and wisdoms and truth that would lead someone, but they would have to follow the breadcrumbs to that instead of me saying, no, like, this is what it is. Yeah. This is how you find it. So now that's what I'm doing, is just being more bold in sharing what is truth, right? And not kind of tiptoeing around it.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to honor you for being bold and brave to not hesitate and to put that up front. Yeah, it's powerful. But and anyone who does jump into your Instagram, what give your handle here so people can jump over
Matt
to
Chenard, MattChenard.
Yeah, I have a question, because as you start to thumb through it, my question is, when did you become a cold plungeaholic? Like, how did that bug bite you? And yeah, it's wild, dude. I love it too, but whew,
that is how I initially went viral.
Okay.
So I started sharing cold plunge. I started cold plunging because I had an autoimmune condition. And one of the modalities of that, or one of the methods I used, was cold exposure. And it was really helpful. And then growing up, I thought a lot about what people would think of me and be nervous of people talking about me and making fun of me or whatever else. Like, if you meet me in person, you not suspect that of me, because I'm an athletic person. I'm 6'6", and I would look like I would be confident. But growing up, that wasn't always the case. So what I decided to do is, I said, I'm going to post every single day on social media, whether it's perfect or not. Previously, I would write a post and I would give it to my wife to edit it, and then she'd send it back to me, and then I wouldn't even post it sometimes because I was overthinking what people would think. So I made a commitment. I said, I'm going to post every single day, whether it's perfect or not. Then I thought, well, you know what? What's going to get me over my fear of judgment when people are going to think of me? Probably sitting in an ice tub. Before it was quote unquote cool on social media and share my ideas, share my thoughts. So I started doing that 6 years ago, maybe. And then I caught that wave when everyone started doing it. And one of my videos got 3.3 million views. My follower count went from 1,000 to 30,000 within a month.
Wow.
And then it just kept going like that because cold exposure became a fad. And it's a great modality, but yeah, I caught the wave and I should say I was in the water. If we're using the analogy of a wave, I was in the water for years, so I was ready.
Varying degrees of temperature, I imagine,
yes.
Not just cold. Did you see an opportunity there to obviously, help your business, your gym business, but then also did you consider like, I gotta get into cold plunge therapy? People are recognizing me. That's part of my brand now. Did you fold that in? How did that work?
That would be my predominant, call it a pillar of my brand. And I'm, again, of the mindset of just do what you think God is calling you to do, and don't put your definition of what the outcome should look like. So just keep stepping into that every single day and saying, I'm going to get in this cold water because I know I need to get over my fear, and I wanted to share my thoughts because I think I have valuable thoughts sometimes. So I did that, built a brand around mostly cold plunging. And I was like, well, how do I actually leverage this to build my businesses? And for many years, I drew attention to my coaching and leadership business, but there felt like there was a lot of friction with that because it's really hard to tie cold exposure to helping you grow your business. But just recently, like the past month or two, I had a couple guys reach out to me. Hey, do you do like life coaching? Christian men, do you do life coaching? And I had done this previously, and I shut it down to do some business coaching. And then it started to click with me. Well, cold plunging in the morning, early morning, requires a lot of discipline. And the truths I'm sharing is going to resonate with men who want to be good leaders at home and in their business. There's going to be way less friction to me actually offering something in alignment with that. So I kind of threw that out there a couple of weeks ago. And in the past 2.5 weeks, I've had almost 400 men sign up for my notification list for my program that I'm just building out. So it's pretty cool to see how this all kind of comes full circle, like leaning again into this thing that's already there instead of trying to reinvent it.
Yeah. There's this whole theme. I love that, dude, of that's in my personal life right now and business. And that is obedience. Right?
Yeah.
And when we are obedient to what God wills, man, he opens the doors for us, right? Parts the seas for us, or the waters with free. It's fine. It's fun to watch when you realize, oh, if I was going against that because I was trying to impose my will. So did you feel that there was something in you that was trying to impose, maybe your outcome?
Yep.
And then when you embrace this part, you're saying like, oh, this is his will. This is his way. Holy moly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you picked up on that. And obedience has been something I keep seeing and seeing themes and just reels. I'm sure the algorithm feeds that now, but this whole mindset of obedience, like our job is to be obedient, not to dictate the outcome. And when I started, so I'll kind of give this whole storyline here. In 2020 and 2019, I started doing coaching for men. And it was for Christians and non-Christians, helping them find more purpose, being more steadfast, consistent, disciplined. And it would help non-Christians get to a point, but they'd still be missing something, obviously, and they need a relationship with Jesus. So I was like, okay, I can't offer this as a service. I'm not going to share the gospel in exchange for money. I'm going to help them if they want in terms of getting to know Christ outside of a paid thing. But then, so I shut that down, went to business and leadership coaching because it can be quite lucrative, right? And this was the time where everything's going on with the gym. I was like, I need to make money here to support our family, to float our family, to pay off all these loans. Mm-hmm. So I worked very, very hard, and I still enjoy that aspect of it. And I would say I'm decent at it. But I think what you're saying there is I was doing it for the outcome in mind, instead of really leveraging and stepping into what God's given me in terms of, hey, my audience, my experience, what really brings me life, like these deeper conversations, bring these ideas that are principles that you can't really see to methods that people can use. So when I decided to post that a couple of weeks ago, I told my wife, Julie, I was like, I think this is, I'm not saying you're ever at that point, but like this is the thing, because it doesn't feel like there's that much friction mentally. I don't have to think how I bring my content to this offer. It just aligns really closely, and I really like doing it, and I could see myself doing it for the rest of my life. And so that whole aspect of obedience is doing the things daily that are in alignment with what God's given you to steward and your gifts, and not worrying about the outcome, right? Where prior I was fixated on the outcome, and I was trying to build everything up to that so I could get to that outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a common challenge for us to have clarity on what is his will, what is his message to us. What are some tools that you use? Anything specific in your daily prayers? How do you pull in a conversation?
Yeah. That's something I'm really diving into a lot more, is the practice of prayer. I've always had I'd say difficult time, right? Like with that. And like when I read my Bible, it's like you get some sort of feedback. You're reading this, you're receiving truth, you're learning God's character. But with that prayer aspect, it can be a bit more difficult for me, right? Like sometimes you feel like you're just talking to nothing. Yeah. And so that's a practice I'm leaning into, and reading. Tim Keller has a book on prayer as well that we're reading through with a small group, and it's really exciting for me. But when you say things that have helped me, and I actually have this as part of my Resilience Man program. Are you familiar with the Ikigai exercise?
Yeah. Well, please explain it to the audience. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a Venn diagram and you have 4 different quadrants. What you're passionate about, like what you love doing, what problems, like what does the world need? What can you be paid for? And what are you good and skilled at or gifted at? And the center of that is that sweet spot, right? So if I use the analogy of business coaching, I was using my skills and I was focused on the problem and the money, but I enjoy men's coaching, life coaching a lot more. So when you list down everything you love doing personally and professionally, what are the problems in the world that align with that you can help fix? What can be paid for? And then on the other side is what are you gifted at naturally and skilled at naturally? And what authority do you have? Life experience do you have? And again, in the center is that point where you're like, I'm going to investigate that. I'm going to slowly become more curious of that. So that's one tool. And then I use Patrick Lencioni's 6 Working Genius tool that says, hey, we have 2 geniuses, 2 competencies, and 2 frustrations in the workplace. And then I go through that myself, any of my team members in my businesses, any people going through my program, to help them understand, hey, pursue these things you're good at, instead of pursuing the outcome. Because I don't think we're made to retire. I think we're made to add value into the world for our whole lives. So again, if you chase this outcome of retirement or a net worth or whatever it is, thinking that that's going to give you fulfillment and rest finally, I think you're going to find much more fulfillment and rest by aligning your job with how you've been designed, because that's not something you will ever want to retire from or burn out from. It'll actually give you energy.
I love that. I want to make sure for those who are listening and driving for the audio podcast, because we're going to put in all Ikigai. For anyone who's listening, Ikigai, I think it's how it's spelled. Yep. Like it's a little Japanese, a Japanese word. And I think it's only the Japanese that has a word for this. And what I love about that Venn diagram is if you look at the center, it's really your purpose in life. Yep. And no one, our culture doesn't have that. We're not, as a society trying to figure out what's our mission and purpose in life. But as you and I agree, the purpose is building for the kingdom. It's just Jesus at the center of that.
Yeah.
And I think part of our mission is to help others realize that. Like, yeah, take that Ikigai, bro. Yeah. And realize what we've realized. I hope you arrive, before it's too late there. But the name just quickly of the guy and the framework again, so that
Patrick Lencioni, the 6 Working Genius. The acronym is WIDGET, which means the geniuses in the workplace are wonder and invention, discernment and galvanization, and then enablement and tenacity.
Cool. Yeah. I'm excited to jump into that. I do have a personal question, and you can skim on the surface or go as deep as you want.
Sounds good.
The support that you get, whether through team, at home, is your wife supportive in terms of how you manage prayer, faith, and business, and how you manage your stress levels in terms of like, I give it to God, because not everyone can do that. Right. It's really challenging, and I say this because that's my wife. It's hard. It's a challenge for her to just completely give it. And when I'm in church and I'm stressed about something, I literally say, I release this burden and I give it to you. And dude, it works. It truly works. Not in that second. It may be when I'm walking out, or when I get to the parking lot, or when I go to sleep that night. So that is a difficult question. But yeah.
No, I appreciate the question, and reorientate me if I go off topic or I'm not answering it. But yes, my wife, Jaleesa, would be supportive. We were actually talking about, this could be a whole different topic, but Ephesians, what it means to actually die for your wife and submit to your husband. I know that's a hot topic. So we were talking about that, what that actually means, and thinking what that all means. And I had a reel kind of around that topic go viral as well. And I don't know if I have a succinct answer, but all that to say is that I think if you're both pursuing God, you get rid of your pride, you get rid of your ego, and you understand how each person is designed to glorify God in the marriage. And again, you let your ego go, and you know that no one is less than. You're both equal. You just have different skills and talents, just like in the workplace. We all have different skills and talents. One is not better than the other. That is something that we've been leaning into way more, and letting go again of our pride. We're not perfect at that. We have some pretty big decisions to make in the next couple months, and some things shifting and happening. And it's been really cool to just, again, continue to live out this obedience and be like, hey, you need to be patiently active. You need to do the things. You can't just wait and say, like, it's almost like this prayer when we say, bless our food, and we're eating a bunch of junk food, right? Like, you have to act in this thing in accordance with where you think is the right way to go, but also be patient to know that, again, the circumstances, the outcome is not up to you. And you can rest in knowing that he's a good father, and he's actually leading the household. He's actually leading where you're going. And when we live in alignment with that, we can both submit to his will and not let pride or ego build ourselves up.
Yeah.
Did that answer it, Erik?
Yeah, you totally answered. And I love that you bring up, he is our father and he knows best.
Yeah.
And anyone who has children, anyone who's a father or a mother or a parent, knows that we do know what's best, especially during the formative years of our children. They think they know, from age 0 to 12 to whenever, the young adulthood. And we see the path for them, but we can't force them to do it. They're eventually going to go on their own, make their own decisions, and they'll find out on their own. They're like, oh man, dad was right. Like, I shouldn't have dated that girl, or I shouldn't have taken that job, or whatever it was, but we can't force them. And it's the same with our Father, our Heavenly Father, in that he knows what's best for us. And we may think like, God, I need to be a multi-million-dollar business by X, like by 2026, 2027, whatever it is. And it doesn't happen. Yeah. It doesn't mean that he's not loving you. It doesn't mean that he's abandoned you. And it's all part of a bigger plan that we have zero idea. We have no way to comprehend. Right. You want to expand on that?
Yeah. I mean, you don't know what that looks like if you actually got what you desired with your heart. Like, we've been talking about this, my wife and I, a little bit. Like, our hearts are deceitful. We like to think like, hey, just follow your heart, do what you think is best. I don't know. Sometimes I want to eat a whole jar of candy, and my heart would love that. And I know obviously that's not good. But we can start to justify it. And we can start to, and I think that's where a lot of danger happens, is we start to justify things that we say are in God's will, and start to create stories and narratives around that. And there was something that you said I wanted to touch on, and I kind of got off on a tangent there, but we can maybe land that plane back there in a second. But if you, like, $6 million business, $2 million business, how do you know that's good for you? And when I say good, like we think of prosperity, like people think of material goods, right? Like spiritual prosperity. That's what we're talking about. You want a deeper relationship with God. You want a deeper relationship with people. And if you, again, are pursuing this outcome, this thing that you say, hey, this is going to give me purpose and fulfillment. This is going to make me feel secure. It's all hevel, as it says in Ecclesiastes, here today, gone tomorrow. And if you build your identity, your security, your hope, your peace, your purpose on an outcome, right? Whether it's, hey, if I get that physically fit body, if I get that promotion, if I get that business to where it should be, again, it would be the most loving thing for a good father to do, to not give it to you. Because you don't want to gain the world while losing your soul. And I know as a broken, imperfect father to my daughter, if she wants to eat a bunch of ice cream, which she's 2, she doesn't know what ice cream is yet. I'm not going to let her, or a tub of ice cream, because I know what that's going to cause in the end. It's not going to be good. Mm-hmm. And like you said, sometimes God, he will give us our heart's desires, right? He will enable that. Like if we continue to push on the door, only to realize, oh, I needed this relationship all along. So if you can avoid that pain, because you don't have to go through these struggles, like to grow, you can just be obedient right off the bat and submit to him and bring it to wise counsel and say like, hey, this is what I think I want to do. This is what I think I want to bring my business to. This is what I think I want to do in this area of my life. Does it align with, is it morally right? Does it align with God's will and his truth? And do you have wise counsel of people who can speak loving truth into your life? And I think that's kind of a framework or filter to use to make sure what you're doing is in obedience to that. So you don't have to go through that 2x4 hit to the head difficulty.
Yeah. No, that's great, man. You brought up so many good points. I don't know which one to touch on first, because it'll take us down different paths, rabbit holes. But I'm going to backtrack a little bit to two things you said. One was follow your heart, and that can get us into trouble, especially in today's culture, with the Mel Robbins and all these folks that preach that. And I was a huge subscriber of that not long ago. But like you said, it could lead us down to, annihilating an entire jar of cookies, or, like you said, some chocolate, and it's not good for us. And I want to segue that into, we may think we want that outcome, but maybe God he's very aware that we're not prepared for that. And he's preparing us, and he's building our muscles in order to be the person that can actually take that on, that weight, that responsibility, that success. Imagine, because money only amplifies what you currently are, right? So what you are at that moment. So maybe it's not time for you to become a multi-million-dollar business, because he's still preparing you, right? You're building the armor of God. It's one at a time, little by little. So yeah, and you said a lot of it. I'll pause there if you have any thoughts.
Yeah. I think, because again, I don't think you're able to handle it if you need it, right? If you need it for your security, your hope, your identity. Like, so one of the parts of my course I have in my Resilient Man program is actually I'm calling it the hidden war. Basically, idol worship. When people think about idols, we think about money. We think about wealth. We think about nice cars, all these power, or in the Old Testament, we think of golden calves. And those are the surface of something deeper. So the deeper part of this is power, comfort, approval, and control. So these things are not bad. None of these things are bad. Money's not bad, and these deeper idols are not bad. But we are designed to only find these things in Christ. So as soon as we say, I'm going to have control of my life when I have this net worth, or when my business gets to this, I'm going to be more comfortable when I am retired. I'm going to be more accepted, or I'm going to have more approval if I had that car, if I had that job. I'm going to have more power if I have a bigger following, a more influence. So then these deep idols manifest in different ways on the surface. So here's a good example. My wife struggled with an eating disorder, exercise addiction, at the beginning of our marriage. So when we were engaged for 4 or 5 years in our marriage, and she's healed from that. Praise be to God with that, because it's a really deadly illness, mental illness. And we talk about, she's a certified eating disorder coach now. And the deep idol of that would be control and approval, right? You count your calories, you control your calories, And she was doing this in a stressful time as she was in school. Approval, right? You're being praised for how your body looks. And if we don't understand there's a deeper idol attached to these surface level things, we can get rid of, in this case, the exercise addiction. But it can, again, manifest in something else in your life. You're still trying to find the control in something on the surface. So then what you need to do is you need to pinpoint and say, this is my idol. Control is my idol. I need to then uproot this and replace it with God's truth, knowing that He's in control and I am able to rest in Him, right? Or comfort or all these different things. So replacing these deep idols with the truth of the gospel so that they don't keep manifesting on the surface in different areas of life. Because you can get rid of alcoholism, you can get rid of greed on the surface, but it's going to pop up somewhere else if you don't replace the root of it.
This is really deep. I love this. So people desire basically to worship idols. We're designed. It's in our DNA to worship.
Idol factories. Our hearts are idol factories. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. And, when Moses went up into the mountain, everybody's like, well, we're going to worship something. Where is he? He's dead.
Yeah.
Make a calf.
Yeah.
But I love what you said, so we're either seeking power, comfort. We want to worship either power, comfort, approval, or control. And these are deep rooted, right? Could date, be when we were children in our household. And, there's so many psychological connections, deep rooted that. So the work that you're doing in finding the root cause of a certain disorder or an illness, how do you go about that? And how much sort of pushback do you get? That's not easy. That's not an easy job.
Yeah. So I'm not a counselor. I need to state that. But I do know that these are truths. So what I do is I created this little quiz. It's like a 22 question quiz. And at the end, it kind of points to your main thing you gravitate to idolizing. For me, it's comfort. So when I get stressed out, I get overwhelmed, I can eat on junk food, or I can eat junk food. Like I'll overeat food just to, as an escapism habit, right? Which is funny because my slogan's earn your dopamine. And that's the thing I can naturally gravitate to is this more comfort-based things. So then this quiz shows, hey, this is your idol that you tend to gravitate to. That doesn't mean you can't do the other ones, but I predominantly found that most people do gravitate to one. Like my wife would gravitate, and she's found me saying this, more to control. And I'm more to comfort. Like I like vacations. I like these finer things in life. I really enjoy that. Again, nothing wrong with that. It's when it becomes an ultimate thing. So then what we do is we say, that's what you kind of gravitate to. What in your life right now on the surface are you trying to gain this idol through? Is it money? Is it food? Is it binge eating? Is it like exercise addiction? Like when it reaches a certain point, like alcoholism, exercise addiction, I'm not helping with that. Like I'm more preventative because these things start to grow and grow. I don't know what the verse is, but basically evil desires give to sin to death. It's like a desire to sin to death. So I'm trying to uproot that and pinpoint that before that all happens. And then you say, okay, this is where I'm trying to find my security on the surface because I need control in my life. What is actually true? So then you go to the Bible, you read scripture, you understand the gospel, and you preach the gospel to yourself, just like in the Bible, right? It's not, you actually talk about the truth. You're preaching that to your heart. You're telling your heart that. So eventually over time, that truth takes root, and then you uproot that idol, point it out, obviously repent of it, and then replant what is actually true by meditating on it, praying about it, and reading truths about where you're supposed to find that.
Wow. Yeah, I would love to take your quiz.
Sure.
And yeah, I'd love to offer it up to my audience as well in the show notes if that's available.
Yeah.
I love how you're framing it under idol worship, because a lot of these people, including myself, we often term it as a vice, right? Oh man, that's one of my vices, man. I love cigars. I love smoking cigars. Oh, whiskey, bro. It's my vice. It's my one thing. I'm allowed to do it, right? I'm really healthy. I love it when I know guys that smoke and drink and they go, but I'm really healthy. Yeah. I'm like, really, dude? Yeah, you've got a different definition of health than I do, but okay. But those false idols too, obviously money. But dude, one of the big ones is now social media. Holy bro, like, dude, it's crazy. If you can't go into any major city, especially, because you'll see a lot of it condensed. You can't, how do you cross the street looking down at your phone?
Yeah.
Like, you're not worried about getting smashed by a cab. Like, what is happening? So talk about false idols, bro. And then there's the inception of it. What are they watching? Because there's a billion different things that they could be consuming and worshiping and obsessed with. My comfort thing I was thinking of, for you said it's food. For me, it's television and movies. Like, that's my escapism. If I'm stressed, dude, I'm like, honey, everybody's going to sleep. I'm just going to go watch a movie. And then I escape. But then that affects my whole day. It's a domino effect.
Yep.
Now I'm waking up late. Now that crap is in my head when I'm going to sleep, whether it's sex or something demonic or I'm like, now I'm thinking of it. So it's really bad. And then especially now it's in your pocket. Yeah. Right. You're in bed looking at the stuff. Like, whoa.
So actually talking about social media, obviously I have a bigger brand, but one of the other escapism things for me would be scrolling social media. Like, nothing bad, but just like it's a escape. And as people follow me on social media, like, I'm not perfect. Like, I struggle with things everyone struggles with. Like the flesh is real, the devil's real, and the world is real. Like, there's temptations and things that you want to disassociate and go into instead of going to the Lord. And that's where the earn your dopamine comes in. Because what I have found, it's really easy to turn on the TV. It's really easy to scroll social media. It's really easy to gossip. It's really easy to eat junk food. There's a hit. There's something that you want. And it's that dopamine is easily accessible. And very smart people engineer food, entertainment to do that. Right? I know that social media is engineered to keep people scrolling. Every time you swipe up, you're completing a task. It gives you a dopamine hit over and over and over and over again. So what we need to then do is look at life in all these different categories and say, where's the friction I need to walk through before I get this dopamine hit? So that's why cold exposure for me is so impactful. It is incredibly uncomfortable. And someone accused me of being addicted to it. I am not addicted to it. I've started doing it less because I want to see if it helps me with hypertrophy gains, and I don't miss it. But I know that when I do that, on the other side is positive dopamine. When I spend time outside of my phone, having good drink and food with people, just have conversation, there's friction. That's difficult. That's work compared to fast food, watching TV, and just laying back. That's easy, quick dopamine again. Preparing food, that's friction. And building something in your house, there's friction to that. But the fulfillment and joy and dopamine you get on the other side of that is way more sustainable. There's no crash compared to these quick hits, whether it's, like you said, cigarettes or alcohol. And again, not to say that like people can have drinks. It's when it becomes this, going back to the idol thing, this thing that you can only find in God that you're trying to escape.
Yeah. It's really difficult to replace that quick hit dopamine hit with something that is not tangible.
Yep.
Like God, right? Especially if you know someone needs him, right? Because they're addicted or they're suffering. It's challenging for sure. And it's, wow. Do you think that's a relatively recent occurrence, that these constant a seeking of a dopamine? Is it just more because like 100 years ago, how would they get dopamine hits? Like you said, they'd have to build a cabin, right? Build a barn, and then receive a dopamine hit. Like you said, that was more sustainable after 3 months of building a barn versus it's every split second you can get a hit. I mean, the question is, I mean, I know the answer, but I'm curious how you expand on this is the dopamine hits. Like, how did that become? I mean, it's business, like business owners realized it, like, hey, I got to sell nudie magazines, or I got to sell, like, how do you view through your lens, the evolution or de-evolution of just profiting off of creating this environment and this culture for us as weak human beings, dude, that just give it to me, hit me. Like,
it's incredibly difficult. Like you look at our world today, there's so much opportunity, like so much good can be created through social media and the internet. Like we need good people on Instagram. If everyone leaves or whatever it is, like we need people on there so that the algorithm has the opportunity to reach people who need that through that platform. But as you say that, I think about it, like how much more difficult would it be to actually get that dopamine hit? That thing that would, like sinful things, right? Like, it would be really, really hard. I mean, there would be difficulties that people would have previously that we don't have. But I think, and I don't know the stats on this, but I think we're probably one of the more unhappy generations, right? On the surface and on social media, everyone looks happy. But I don't think that's true. I think that this whole idea of utopia is actually creating dystopia. And a lot of people, even myself, this is funny. So we let our daughter watch some shows, Franklin and Little Bear. I don't know if anyone's watched that, like low stimulation shows. And I told my wife the other day, I was watching Little Bear, just small little house, no TV in it. They're interacting, they're having fun. I was like, that looks amazing, right? Like that's what it's about. It's not about growing this huge empire. You can, right? And you can leverage it. And I think people need and steward it well. I think people need to do that. But going back to your main point before, you want to pray that God makes you the type of person that can handle that. And I think you need to set up a lot of guardrails in your life because it is so accessible. We're being bombarded with cheap dopamine and things that can lead us astray very quickly. You need to create these guardrails. And that when I was watching the cartoon with my daughter, it hit me. I was like, that's what people actually want. They want a slower pace of life. They want deep, meaningful relationships. They don't want this clutter that takes their mental energy. And I think that's possible if we, going back to the start of this show, if you become more curious of how you've been designed. And I know I'm going on a lot of tangents here, and stop me if I go too far,
no,
but
it's good.
This is my philosophy I've been talking about a bit more. Let's say I do the Ikigai exercise, I do the 6 Working Genius, and just become more curious of how I've been designed and how I can add value into the world. As a business owner, you get paid for solving problems. You get paid more for solving bigger problems, and the faster you solve them, you get paid even more. So if I pursue how I'm gifted, what I'm naturally good at, my interests, my passions, it might not start that I get instant value, monetary feedback right away, but I don't need it because I really enjoy it. But what does that look like over time? I can't not see it being an exponential increase in value for your time, right? Because you're going to be doing it over and over and over again. You're going to be stewarding and nurturing your gifts so that when the future comes, you're no longer escaping through materialistic habits or cheap dopamine because you're doing a job or building a business that you really dislike because you're doing it for the outcome in mind, right? I think that's what happens with people is they overspend, they get caught in consumeristic patterns because they really dislike their life because they got into a role or a position or a business with the end in mind. Now, I believe if you truly do what you've been designed to do in the workplace and that you really love to do, you don't have to escape. You don't have to overspend by eating out all the time. You don't have to overspend by going on all these grand vacations because you hate your life, for lack of a better term. You hate your work. But if you nurture that thing, eventually you will get paid a bunch of money, but you're not reliant on that. And you can give it to people because you're not using it as a vice and a way to escape. And you don't actually want to retire anymore. You're not chasing this arbitrary age to stop adding purpose in the marketplace. You're just doing what you love to do. And the byproduct of it is money.
I love that. That's, man, I can pull on that thread, dude, and we'll go another 45 minutes. But I do want to add, man, because my head was going like in 100 different places about what you were sharing there, because we get stuck in this. And I think it not to get conspiratorial, but, a lot of this stuff becomes conspiracy fact. But, we were designed in an industrial age where they needed workers in the factories, right? I get it. But it's still designed that way. And when we're in there, you're doing something, the means to the end is I need to make money, put food on the table.
Yeah.
But I'm in a factory, stamping shoes or doing whatever I'm doing, and it's not fulfilling. So eventually it does create avenues for escapism, you know, and the Great Depression, everybody was drinking alcohol, like it was the Prohibition. It's like everybody needed that. Everybody needed to escape. And now we've got so many options to escape, especially now with the phones. It's crazy. And vape pens and all this nonsense and, legalization of, anyway, it's wild. So I want to go a little bit darker, but then come out of it and get to the light. So what do you see or think is missing in the world in terms of faith in God? And how do you believe us as Christian business owners and entrepreneurs can help to solve the problem, at least one thing at a time?
We recently went through, and I'm not a theologian, so when everyone's listening to this, so don't take everything at word value, but we went through Hosea, I believe. And there's a group of people, might have been the Israelites, that were worshiping Baal or Baal. And there was one sermon that he said something that really impacted me. They believed they were worshiping God, but they made God into something that they wanted. And I think that is really what we're living in right now. We're not submitting to and trying to actually know who God is, right? We're trying to make him into something that, hey, God's going to give us all our desires. Like he should make you rich. He should give you health. He should do all these things. Where does it say that? So I think that's, as Christians, I think that's a big danger, is we are trying to mold who God is based on what we desire in our life, instead of having the fear of the Lord in terms of reverence and be like, no, he's Lord. Like he's just, he's loving, he's all these things. Like we want to take one aspect or characteristic of God and say, this is what he is. Because it fits our life, it fits our narrative, it fits what makes us feel good. Like saying that he's not holy and just and wrathful in a holy way, right? So I think that's a big danger and we need to continually check ourselves with that, because just like in Hosea there, and I mean, throughout the whole Bible, we start to make God into something we think he should be. So it fits our life, instead of saying like, nope, God is God and I'm not. And I need to submit and bow my knee to that. And that's where beginning of wisdom happens, right? The fear of the Lord, the reverence of the Lord, and not in like this terror, like I'm not going to bed frightened, but I'm knowing that if I am intimidated and in awe of some of his creation, like the mountains, and and he created that. Like the mountains are beautiful, majestic, but you have to be careful around them. Like you can't just say, hey, I can jump off this side of the mountain and be fine. No, like there's danger in that. Like you have to abide by how God's designed the world and be obedient to that. And I think, to kind of just close it out, a lot of people, myself included, can start to make God into something he's not, to fit our agenda and our needs and wants.
It's so good. It's so good because really what it is New Age, right?
Yes.
It's it's what I subscribed to for many decades, brother. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and it was all about like, at some point, dude, I went down the rabbit hole and they basically say that we are gods, in these New Agey sort of theories, and it's crazy. So what I love about this is there is a movement. And I heard recently that nationwide, maybe it's globally. I hope it's globally. 12% of Christians, people have come back to their faith, come back to Christianity, which is wonderful. So there is some positive change happening, and there is a groundswell and a hunger and an appetite for truth. Really is what we're looking for. And once you find it, like here it is, like you said, open the book, read the truth and realize who is the light. And it's Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So,
amen.
Before I let you go, amen, brother. Before I let you go, I want to hear a little bit more about the Resilient Man.
Sure.
And what you're building there, what you're praying for, and how we can pray for you. And let people know how they can contact you and get in touch and potentially work together.
Sure. Yeah, I was letting Erik know before I'm talking to the audience, before this podcast, before the show started recording, that I basically have started creating this in the past 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. So for now, it's called the Resilient Man Program, and the group is going to be the King's Men as of right now. And my goal with it is to help men become consistent, disciplined, resilient leaders in the marketplace and at home, to get physically strong as a byproduct, to become mentally resilient, to have a joy-filled home, to be respected and trusted in the marketplace as a byproduct of developing discipline, going through something I call the mission code, to understand how you're wired, to have more purpose in your work, to uproot your deep idols and replace them with truth, to be consistent and disciplined through what I call the discipline engine. And I am launching it. It actually starts next week. I'm doing this launch program, so it's significantly discounted, and it's going to be a shorter time frame because I want to get some amazing stories to help more men with this. And my goal is that as soon as I start kind of investigating this, I was blown away by the need, like absolutely blown away by how, because we as men don't really talk about this. We kind of just subdue it and hold it to ourselves. But there's a big, big need. And predominantly, my focus is on high achieving people who've reached some success, and they're like Christians who are like, there's something more. And I think that something more is becoming more curious of how God's designed you and stewarding that. So you don't have to escape into anything anymore. You no longer feel mentally drained and stressed. You create a joy-filled marriage, create great relationships with your kids, not creating perfection, but becoming that person, the opposite, I would say, of the Andrew Tates, that the meekness that Christ exemplified, because meekness is not weakness, it's a controlled power. So becoming strong, having resources, but never having to use them because you know where your identity is, where the truth is, and it's in Christ. So you can walk faithfully and obediently every single day, stewarding your time, money, and energy well.
Love it, dude. Thank you so much, man, for being here. I'm going to point people to Matt Chenard, MattChenard on Instagram. Please check him out. You can see him torturing himself with his plunges. He's enjoying it way too much. I imagine, dude, you must probably sit there and you can have a nice conversation with God in those moments because your brain is only thinking about survival. Whenever I do it, it's like, I can't think of anything else. So maybe I'm sure you've gotten to that degree where you can have clarity and quiet, right? Quiet the brain, because that's the thing. We have monkey brain. It's so hard to pray for many of us with those distractions flying through our heads. But yeah, do you find that cold plunge gets you closer to God and having those conversations and hearing his word? And
when I am not talking to the camera, absolutely. It brings you to the moment. It brings you mentally there. You can't really stress about anything else, right?
For sure. Yeah. Highly recommended, but we're not doctors, so check with your physician if it's something you can do and it's safe for you. Especially if you're not sure with your heart, because it can stress it. But thank you so much, brother, for being here. Thank you for helping me move people and build this for the kingdom for sure. And I appreciate you and I love you, man. And thank you so much. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Appreciate it, Erik. Appreciate you too.
If you were inspired or you learned something new today, please give us a like or a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. If you want to learn more about how to build your YouTube channel, your personal brand or podcast, hit us up at info@onairbrands.com. That's info@onairbrands.com so that we can find ways that we can help you. I'm Erik Cabral, and I hope that I added value in your life today.